Meet Karen and Denise. Not their real names, obviously, because nobody wants to be the cautionary tale in a YouTube video. But their numbers are real. Their choices are real. And in 2003, at age 40, they were financially identical. Same zip code, same $95,000 household income, same $110,000 sitting in a 401k. If you'd run their numbers through a spreadsheet back then, you'd have assumed they'd retire on nearly identical piles of money. They didn't. 25 years later, one of them has $1.9 million and spends her Tuesdays deciding which grandchild gets spoiled next. The other one has $310,000, a part-time greeter job at a hardware store, and a very complicated relationship with her thermostat. Nobody handed one of them a winning lottery ticket. Nobody blew up the other's finances with a single catastrophic decision. What actually happened is quieter and much more American. One of them upgraded her kitchen island. The other one didn't. We're going to explain why that decade, the decade between 40 and 50, carries more financial weight than every other decade of your adult life combined. Not because you're smarter or dumber in your 40s, because the math finally lines up, and most people are too busy buying a slightly nicer minivan to notice. Here's the part personal finance influencers skip because it doesn't fit in a 15-second reel. Your 40s are the one stretch of life where three financial forces overlap. First, peak income. Most Americans hit their highest earning years between 42 and 55. The raises slow down, sure, but the actual dollar amount is the biggest it will ever be. Second, compounding time. At 40, you've still got roughly 25 years before retirement. A dollar invested today has time to roughly quadruple. At 50, that same dollar barely doubles. At 55, it limps to the finish line. The math isn't cruel on purpose, it's just math. It doesn't care about your feelings, and it definitely doesn't care that you deserve a boat. Third, your expenses finally stop climbing. The toddler years are over, the furniture's bought, the starter home stretch is behind you. For the first time since your 20s, there's actual breathing room in the budget. Put those three together, and your 40s become the only decade where you have more money coming in, more time for it to grow, and fewer things eating it alive, all at once. It is, financially speaking, the best hand you'll ever be dealt. Naturally, this is also the exact decade Americans decide to remodel the kitchen. Let's do the math nobody does before they sign the mortgage paperwork. A family that upgrades from a $350,000 house to a $600,000 house adds about $1,800 a month in housing costs. It feels manageable on paper. It's one extra dinner out, right? Except that $1,800 a month invested over 25 years instead of spent on square footage becomes somewhere north of $1 million by retirement. Read that again. The reasonable house upgrade isn't an $1,800 decision, it's a $1 million decision wearing a granite countertop disguise. Same story with the car. Trade the reliable Camry for a $60,000 SUV because you've earned it, and you haven't just bought a car, you've quietly deleted a few $100,000 from your future self's bank account. Your future self was not consulted. Your future self would like a word. And then there's college. Parents in their 40s routinely take out six-figure Parent Plus loans or gut their own retirement accounts to send an 18-year-old to a school that costs as much as a house, a school the 18-year-old will forget the name of 3 internships from now. The kid graduates with their whole career ahead of them. The parents enter their 50s with a decade left and a hole where their savings used to be. Somehow, this is treated as a sacrifice worth making, and never as the math problem it actually is. None of these decisions feel reckless in the moment. That's exactly the point. Nobody destroys their retirement with one dramatic mistake. They do it with several reasonable ones, made back-to-back for 10 years straight. Here's the sales pitch your 40s come with, whether you asked for it or not. You worked hard. You earned this. Enjoy it now while you still can. It sounds generous. It is, in fact, the single most expensive sentence in personal finance. The reality is that lifestyle upgrades deliver joy on a suspiciously short lease. Research on adaptation is blunt about this. Most people feel the thrill of a bigger house or a nicer car for about 18 months, and then it simply becomes the new normal. The granite countertops stop being exciting. They just become countertops. Meanwhile, the monthly payment never adapts to anything. It just keeps showing up. So the trade is 18 months of feeling good in exchange for permanently lowering the ceiling on your last 2 decades. That is, by any honest accounting, a terrible deal, the financial equivalent of trading a house for a really nice sandwich. The families who actually retire comfortably rarely look impressive in their 40s. They drive the boring car. They stay in the modest house a little too long. Their neighbors probably feel a little sorry for them. 20 years later, nobody feels sorry for them anymore. So, which one are you? Maybe you're in your 40s right now, staring down a kitchen renovation quote or a college tuition bill, telling yourself it's temporary. Maybe you're in your 30s, watching this with the smug confidence of someone who thinks they'll definitely be the disciplined one. Statistically, you probably won't be. Almost nobody thinks they're the cautionary tale while they're living it. The math doesn't care which one you are. It doesn't send warnings. It doesn't give you a second decade to make up for the first one. By the time the wake-up call arrives, usually somewhere around 50, there often isn't enough runway left to fix it. Karen and Denise made their decisions quietly, one reasonable choice at a time, without ever feeling like they were choosing anything at all. You're doing the same thing right now. You just don't know which version of the story you're in yet.